You're not stuck because you're not trying hard enough. You're stuck because you haven't stopped being the version of you that attracts this life. You do all the things. You journal, you script, you visualize, you meditate, you align your chakras, drink the green juice, chant the mantras. You try your hardest to trust the universe, but your reality still looks eerily familiar. New goals, same emotions, new intentions, same outcome. It's not a lack of effort, it's a frequency loop. You're changing what you do without ever changing who you are underneath. And that's the part no one talks about. You've outgrown the old self intellectually, but vibrationally, you're still broadcasting the same signal. And the quantum field? It doesn't respond to desire. It responds to coherence. So if you're tired of decorating the same loop with shinier vision boards, this isn't about more effort. It's about finally understanding what's actually running your life and how to change it from the frequency up. You've been taught that if you just want it enough, speak it clearly enough, visualize it vividly enough, the universe will respond. So you do. You craft the perfect affirmations. You say them every morning, every night, sometimes with tears in your eyes, hoping the emotion makes it more real. You stare at your vision board, whispering, "It's already mine." You imagine the house, the money, the love, and yet reality doesn't budge. You feel like you're talking to a wall. And maybe, quietly, you're beginning to wonder if you're just bad at manifesting. But here's the truth. You're not doing it wrong. You're just trying to create a new reality while still vibrating as the old self. And the field, this quantum reality that everyone keeps talking about, doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your signal. And your signal is not what you say, it's what you are when no one's looking. It's the energy you emit when you're not trying to perform or impress or manifest. It's the tone of your being in the in-between moments, when you're stuck in traffic, when you're crying in the shower, when you're lying in bed scrolling through social media wondering why your life still feels like it's on repeat. The loop you're caught in isn't punishment, it's precision. It's not that the universe isn't listening, it's that it's listening too well. It's hearing the emotional signature you send out on autopilot. The one that says, "This is what's familiar, this is what's safe, this is who I still believe I am." That's the code being broadcast. And the field? It mirrors it back, with unwavering loyalty. That's why you keep seeing the same patterns dressed up in different outfits. New jobs, same insecurity. New partner, same rejection wound. New opportunity, same fear of being seen. You're changing the setting, but not the signal. And the signal, your embodied vibration, is what's really creating the magnetic field around your life. The field doesn't care what you want. It cares what you stabilize in. It's not moved by urgency, effort, or hope. It's moved by coherence. Coherence is when your mind, your body, and your energy are aligned in the same direction. Most people try to manifest with their mind, while their nervous system is still anchored in survival. That's why they feel like they're pushing against an invisible wall, because they are. That wall is the vibration of their past self still pulsing beneath every intention they speak. And here's the most overlooked truth in manifestation. Your frequency is determined less by what you do and more by what you believe you're safe to receive. If your subconscious has wired in struggle, scarcity, or abandonment as normal, it will reject ease and expansion, even if you consciously crave it. The body will contract around what it doesn't feel safe to hold. That's not failure, it's programming. Some truths can't be spoken freely here, but inside Insights Academy, our free newsletter, we go deeper into what's really keeping your field stuck. For a limited time, you'll also receive a free copy of the Kabbalion when you sign up via the link in the description. The reason that shift feels impossible isn't because you're not spiritual enough. It's because you're trying to raise your frequency while still rehearsing the energy of lack. You're trying to attract abundance from the emotional posture of not enough. You're trying to speak love into existence while still vibrating as someone afraid to be seen. And the field is responding not to your words, but to your coherence, or lack of it. This is the law of vibrational repetition. It doesn't care about good or bad, right or wrong, fair or unfair. It simply loops what you hold as familiar. So if your familiar is struggle, loneliness, or fear, that's the frequency your field stabilizes in. You can meditate for hours and still attract more of the same. You can read all the books, do all the healing, say all the right things, and still be stuck. Because it's not what you know that shifts your reality, it's what you are energetically aligned with. The loop doesn't break when you do more. It breaks when you become different. When you stop reacting as the old self. When you stop speaking lack and calling it alignment. When you stop using your effort as a mask for your fear, that's when the field starts to reconfigure. Not when you demand more from the universe, but when you no longer resonate with the version of you that believed they had to beg for it. There's a part of you that wants to believe you're in control, that your thoughts shape your reality, that if you just visualize hard enough or think positively for long enough, everything will shift. But here's the hard truth. It's not your conscious mind that creates your reality, it's your nervous system. It's the part of you that never needed language to decide what's safe and what's not. The part that flinches before you even realize you're afraid. The part that's been recording every moment of pain, abandonment, shame, rejection, and storing it deep in the body, out of sight, out of reach, until it becomes who you are without even trying. That's why you keep repeating the same experiences. Not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because your body is addicted to what it knows. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you've survived before. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. And to your nervous system, familiar equals safe, even if it's toxic, even if it hurts, even if it keeps you small. You can speak affirmations all day long. You can light your candles and do your meditations. But if your nervous system is still wired for fear, for chaos, for waiting for the other shoe to drop, then guess what? That's what the quantum field will continue to mirror. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it's loyal to the blueprint you're broadcasting underneath the surface. You are trying to manifest abundance, but your body is still anticipating loss. You are asking for love, but you're still vibrating with the memory of betrayal. You are calling in freedom, but your energy is shaped around control. This is the fracture point, where the conscious desire clashes with the subconscious imprint. And this is where most people retreat, because doing more feels easier than feeling more. Effort becomes a coping mechanism. Hustle becomes a distraction. Spiritual practices become performance. But beneath all of it is a nervous system that doesn't yet feel safe to receive the life you're asking for. And until safety is rewired, the field will keep giving you what feels normal, not what feels good. This is the invisible loop, not just in your habits, but in your biology. This is why when you get close to something different, something better, you panic, you sabotage, you shut down. Not because you don't want it, but because you've never felt safe having it. Expansion feels like a threat when your body has only known contraction. Peace feels like danger when your nervous system has been trained to expect chaos. Joy feels untrustworthy when it's been scarce for so long. And so you collapse back into the old rhythm, not realizing it's the signal you're unconsciously asking the field to sustain. This is where quantum shifting becomes real, not in your imagination, but in your regulation. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper to your next reality. You won't hold a frequency your body doesn't feel safe to embody. That's why people bounce back into their old life even after brief moments of change, because the nervous system always pulls you home. And if home is wired to scarcity, to overgiving, to distrust, then that's what you'll recreate, even in the middle of abundance. True shifting doesn't happen when you force it. It happens when you become the version of yourself who doesn't flinch in the face of peace, who doesn't chase what's already theirs, who doesn't shrink when things get good. But that version of you isn't something you think your way into. It's someone you regulate into. It's someone your nervous system must learn to recognize as safe. This is why breathwork, somatics, trauma healing, and deep inner stillness matter more than positive thinking ever will, because they address the source code. They interrupt the loop at the level where it's anchored. They teach your body a new normal, one where peace isn't followed by punishment, where joy isn't suspicious, where expansion doesn't have to be earned through suffering. Until your body feels safe to live in a new timeline, your mind will just keep decorating the old one. And no amount of scripting, vision boards, or rituals will override that. The field doesn't speak language, it speaks coherence. And coherence starts in the body, not in your journal. You've been told to just stay positive, to speak what you seek until it shows up, to fake it till you make it. But what if I told you that this obsession with positivity is the very thing keeping you stuck? Not because positivity is bad, but because when it's used to avoid the truth beneath your surface, it becomes spiritual denial. And no one shifts their reality by bypassing the very parts of themselves that are holding the frequency of the old life. You can say, abundance flows to me 100 times a day, but if your gut still clenches every time you check your bank account, the field isn't picking up on your words, it's picking up on that contraction. You can declare, I am love, in the mirror, but if your body tenses when someone gets too close, your energy is still anchored in protection, not connection. And the quantum doesn't care about your mantras. It mirrors your coherence. Not what you say, but what you are. The law of attraction has been distorted into a shallow performance. As if you can trick the universe by saying nice things while ignoring the panic, the shame, the deep-rooted fear that lives beneath your polished mindset. But the field isn't listening to your surface. It's listening to your vibration in the moments when you're not performing, the moments when you're raw, unfiltered, alone with your doubt. That's the signal being broadcast. This is why you keep ending up in the same situations. Not because you're not being positive enough, but because your body is still aligned with the reality you say you've outgrown. You haven't shifted, you've just changed the decor. You've pasted high-frequency words over low-frequency wounds. And the universe, as always, responds with precision. It isn't punishing you, it's obeying the command you're sending out on autopilot. This is the trap of toxic positivity. It teaches you to ignore your pain instead of alchemizing it. It teaches you to perform clarity instead of actually finding it. And slowly, you start to gaslight your own truth. You stop trusting your emotional instincts. You shame yourself for feeling low, forgetting that your emotions are data, not disobedience. They're showing you where your signal is distorted, where coherence has been lost. Real transformation doesn't come from plastering good vibes over suppressed trauma. It comes from sitting with the discomfort, not rushing to edit it, from witnessing the fear without letting it drive, from being honest with the parts of you that still don't believe you're worthy, and meeting them, not fixing them. Because when you meet yourself fully, without judgment, something shifts. Your system starts to relax. The split between what you say and what you feel begins to heal. And that's when your signal becomes coherent. There's a difference between thinking better thoughts and becoming a better frequency. One is mental, the other is embodied, and embodiment always wins. Because the field isn't reacting to your hope, it's reacting to your baseline, the place you return to when you're not watching yourself, when you're not on, when you're not trying. That's the version of you creating your tomorrow, not the one on Instagram saying, I'm manifesting my dream life, but the one who still panics when rent is due, the one who's exhausted from chasing high vibrations, the one who feels guilty for not being positive all the time. You are allowed to be in process. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to feel what's real. Because authenticity, not performance, is the real magnet. The field doesn't care about how many gratitude lists you write. It cares about whether your body feels safe enough to receive what you're asking for. And sometimes, the most magnetic thing you can do is finally tell the truth about what hurts. You don't manifest through denial. You manifest through coherence, through alignment, through the moment when your thoughts, emotions, and body are no longer at war with each other. That's when reality bends. That's when timelines collapse. Not because you tricked the universe, but because you finally stopped tricking yourself. The biggest illusion in manifestation is that you can attract a new life while staying the same person. But you can't. And deep down, you already know this. You've felt the friction, the strange resistance that shows up the moment you try to do something differently. You set a goal, shift your habits, make the vision board. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it feels like something might finally change. But then life pulls you back. Old patterns return. Familiar emotions creep in. The high fades, and you find yourself right back in the loop. Different strategy, same outcome. Why? Because the you who's doing the manifesting is the same version of you that's been living the old timeline. You're trying to build a new reality from the frequency of your current identity. That's like trying to paint a masterpiece with the same brush that's been dipped in yesterday's colors. It's never going to look any different. This is what most people miss. The quantum doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what you are is shaped by your identity. Not the one you post online. The deeper one. The energetic imprint of who you believe yourself to be when no one's watching. That's the blueprint you carry into every decision, every relationship, every room. And unless that blueprint shifts, your reality won't either. Here's the trap. Your subconscious is deeply loyal to your old identity. Not because it's good for you, but because it's known, and known equals safe. Even if it's filled with scarcity, stress, and unworthiness, you may consciously want wealth, love, freedom. But if your inner identity is built around survival, guilt, or self-sacrifice, those desires will always feel threatening. Not because they are, but because your system isn't calibrated to hold them. This is the loop. You attract situations that match your identity. You interpret them through that lens. You react in predictable ways. Those reactions create the same emotional patterns. And those emotions reinforce your identity. Round and round it goes, until you step in and break it. Not with force, but with awareness. Here's what's wild. Most people think they need to change their life first to feel different. When I make more money, I'll feel secure. When I meet the right person, I'll feel worthy. When I quit my job, I'll feel free. But the quantum doesn't work like that. You don't get the new reality and then become the new version of you. You become that version first, and then the field reflects it back. This is what it means to quantum shift, to step into the energy of the version of you who already lives the life you want, before there's any evidence it's real. To make decisions from that place, to embody those emotions, to take actions from that state, not as an act, not as a performance, but as a new truth in your nervous system. That's how timelines collapse, not from trying harder, but from becoming different. And here's the painful part. Letting go of the old identity feels like death, because in many ways it is. You're releasing stories that kept you safe. You're grieving versions of you that survived so much. You're stepping into the unknown, where there's no guarantee, no map, no promise. That's why most people don't shift. Not because they can't, but because they're still loyal to the self that's been suffering. Not because they want to stay there, but because they haven't built safety outside of it. But you have a choice. Right now, you can keep doing the same rituals, hoping they'll finally stick, or you can stop trying to manifest from your current identity and start creating from your future one. You don't have to know every step. You don't have to fake confidence. You just have to stop outsourcing your change to the future and start embodying it now, even in small ways, especially in small ways. Reality doesn't shift because you wish for it. It shifts because you finally decide to stop being the version of you that's keeping the loop alive. Most people believe that shifting your reality is about taking different actions or thinking different thoughts. But quantum change doesn't begin in the mind or even in behavior. It begins in the field, in the alignment between your energy, your biology, and your subconscious identity. This alignment is called coherence. And coherence is the point where transformation stops being a theory and starts becoming your new reality. Let's get one thing clear. You can't fake coherence. You can say all the right things, do all the right things, and still not manifest the life you want. because the deepest signal you're broadcasting is fragmented. You want wealth, but your nervous system is locked in survival. You want love, but your energy field still carries the imprint of rejection and abandonment. You want freedom, but your subconscious still equates visibility with danger. This misalignment is what keeps you stuck, not a lack of desire, intelligence, or effort, just a lack of energetic congruence. The quantum field doesn't respond to what's in your head. It responds to your electromagnetic signature, the vibrational broadcast of your entire being. And that signal is clearest when your thoughts, emotions, and body are in harmony. That's coherence. And coherence is power. Your heart emits the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, stronger than the brain. When your heart and mind are in sync, your signal becomes clean, powerful, and directive. You stop broadcasting mixed messages. You stop leaking energy. You stop defaulting back to the frequency of your old self. Instead, you become a clear, focused transmitter of a new timeline. And the field, like a mirror, responds in kind. But here's the catch. Coherence doesn't come from thinking harder or trying more. It comes from healing, from releasing the emotional patterns that fragment your signal, from confronting the beliefs that say you're not worthy of the reality you want, from building safety in your body to hold what you're calling in, without self-sabotage, without guilt, without collapsing into old coping patterns the moment discomfort arises. This is the deep work. It's not glamorous. It won't always look high vibe. It may involve crying, shaking, grieving, or being radically honest with yourself. But that's the alchemy. That's what clears the interference from your signal and allows a new timeline to anchor in. Coherence isn't just about what you feel when you're meditating in silence. It's about what you embody when life tests you, when the bill arrives unexpectedly, when the trigger shows up in your relationship, when the fear creeps in at night. Those are the moments that define your signal, not the perfect affirmations or the vision board aesthetics, but the frequency you hold when your nervous system is on edge. Because coherence isn't about control, it's about congruence, about staying aligned even when the outside world gives you every reason not to. And this is why most manifestation methods fail. They teach mindset without embodiment. They focus on clarity without coherence. They treat the body as an afterthought, when in reality, it's the anchor. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe in your desired timeline, it will reject it, no matter how much you say you want it. That's not self-sabotage. That's biology doing its job. But biology can be rewired. And when it is, the field has no choice but to respond differently. Your job isn't to convince the universe. Your job is to align yourself so deeply with your desired reality that the universe has no room for confusion. You don't need to hustle for timelines. You need to become the frequency they belong to. And the path to that? Coherence. The most powerful people you've ever met, the ones who seem magnetic, clear, grounded, aren't necessarily the smartest or most spiritual. They're coherent. Their inner world isn't fighting itself. Their thoughts support their emotions. Their emotions support their actions. Their actions support their identity. And their identity supports the reality they're living in. It's one continuous signal. No distortion. No contradiction. Just resonance. That's the level of clarity the quantum field responds to. Not your vision board, not your scripting journal, but your coherence. You don't manifest by thinking your way there. You manifest by becoming the version of you that no longer needs to force it. There's a moment no one warns you about when you begin to truly shift, when your frequency starts to rise, when your nervous system begins to stabilize in a new identity, when your actions align with your future instead of your past. That moment is not calm. That moment is not quiet. That moment is chaos. Because right before everything changes, the old pattern fights for its life. This is the friction, the final resistance of the timeline you're collapsing. The part where your old self claws its way back to the surface, not because you've failed, but because you're finally leaving it behind. And like any identity, it doesn't want to die quietly. It wants to be seen one more time, felt one more time, lived one more time, just long enough to tempt you back into the loop. You'll know it when it hits. The anxiety creeps in after a breakthrough. The doubt resurfaces after clarity. Things around you start to shake. Relationships shift. Money gets tight. Unexpected obstacles arrive. It's the pressure right before the paradigm breaks. And it's not punishment. It's purification. What's happening here isn't a step backward. It's an initiation. The quantum field, the part of reality that reflects your innermost state, is recalibrating. And that recalibration stirs up everything that no longer fits the frequency you're stepping into. Like sediment rising to the surface of stirred water, all the suppressed emotions, dormant beliefs, and unconscious behaviors rise into your awareness, not to destroy you, but to be released. Most people retreat here. They misread the chaos as failure. They go back to their old habits, their old relationships, their old coping mechanisms. They think, maybe I was delusional to believe I could shift, but they weren't. They were just seconds away from the lock breaking, inches away from the frequency stabilizing. And in that final moment, they abandoned themselves. This is where you don't. This is the test of coherence. Not when everything's easy, but when the ground is shaking and you still choose to stand in your new identity. When your nervous system says retreat, and you say anchor. When your mind says you're not ready, and your soul says we already left. Shifting isn't a euphoric transcendence. It's often a violent shedding. You don't float into new realities. You bleed into them. You confront the parts of you still addicted to smallness, still comforted by dysfunction, still loyal to wounds, and you let them go. Not because it's easy, but because you're done betraying your future for the sake of your past. This is the frequency war. Old self versus new self. And it's not won through willpower. It's won through surrender. Not passive surrender, but conscious surrender. A choice to stop negotiating with what no longer serves you. A choice to stop making room for the version of you that doesn't belong in the life you're building. If the pain is intensifying, the breakdowns multiplying, the resistance screaming louder, good. That means the shift is working. That means you're touching the edges of a new frequency. That means the version of you that's been silently waiting underneath all the conditioning is finally getting space to breathe. And here's what's beautiful. The moment after the friction, if you stay in it, if you breathe through it, if you refuse to retreat, is stillness, a quiet clarity, a sense of rightness you can't explain, only feel. You've cracked the code. You've crossed the threshold. You've stopped being the frequency of your past and become the anchor of your future. That stillness is where the quantum field begins to respond. Not when you beg, not when you chase, but when you become. The money starts to move. The people arrive. The opportunities click into place, not because you forced them, but because you matched them. You became the energetic doorway through which that reality could enter. This moment, the friction, is the veil. Most never pass through it. But you can, not by doing more, but by deciding that no matter what shows up, no matter what discomfort arises, you will not contract. You will not go back. You will hold the line. Because the version of you that lives on the other side of this doesn't need to try. They just are. And you are on your way to becoming them. There's a kind of awakening that doesn't come from reading more books, repeating more affirmations, or consuming more content. It doesn't come from learning something new. It comes from finally embodying what you already know. And when that happens, when knowledge becomes integration, the entire architecture of your reality begins to shift. This is the part of the journey where things go quiet. Not because nothing's happening, but because for the first time, you're not seeking. You're not grasping. You're not desperately trying to hack the universe. You're just being. And that subtle shift, from performing alignment to actually becoming aligned, is what makes the quantum field pay attention. Because the truth is, you've always known what needed to change. You've always felt the dissonance between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. The problem wasn't ignorance, it was hesitation. A delay in becoming, a pause between the knowing and the doing. But now, something inside you is done waiting. The awareness has matured into embodiment, and embodiment is the language the quantum understands. You can't trick coherence, you can't fake frequency, and you don't get to bypass the integration with flashy routines or surface-level spirituality. The field doesn't respond to how spiritual you look. It responds to what you are when no one's watching, what you do when the pressure hits, what energy your presence broadcasts when your mouth is shut and your guard is down. That's the real signal. And this is the moment you start to take full responsibility for that signal. Not in the self-blaming, toxic positivity kind of way, but in the empowered, deeply grounded kind of way. The kind that says, if my reality is reflecting me, then I can change me. And if I can change me, I can change everything. This is where the mind starts to quiet and the body starts to lead. You eat differently, not because it's trendy, but because your new identity doesn't crave low-frequency fuel. You speak differently, not because you're trying to sound wise, but because words of limitation don't feel comfortable in your mouth anymore. You walk differently, rest differently, connect differently, because something in you has clicked into a new timeline and the old ways simply don't fit. And this kind of change isn't dramatic. It's subtle. You might not even notice it at first. You'll just realize one day that you didn't react the way you used to, that you passed on the gossip, that you didn't reach for the comfort food, that you didn't chase after the person who couldn't love you back. You'll realize that the trigger didn't trigger, the loop didn't loop, and the pain didn't pull you under. And that quiet win, that's a quantum leap. Because quantum shifting isn't about fireworks, it's about consistency. It's not about making one big move. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to prove anything, who doesn't need to manifest harder, who simply is the reality they want to live in, who has stabilized in a new frequency so deeply that their environment can't help but catch up. And this is where your nervous system starts to trust you again, where your subconscious starts to relax, where your body stops anticipating chaos and starts expecting peace. You're not just visualizing abundance anymore. You're living like someone who already has it. You're not faking confidence. You're carrying it in your spine. You're not pretending to be powerful. You're speaking from the place inside you that always knew you were. This is what it means to awaken. To no longer chase alignment, but to exist as it. To no longer try to get there, because you realize there is no there. There's only now. There's only this frequency, this moment, this embodiment. And from this place, everything changes, not because you force it, but because you finally stopped blocking it. The shift isn't a lightning strike. It's a homecoming, a return to your original, undistorted signal. And once you land there, the field responds in kind. The people, opportunities, and outcomes that match your real frequency begin to flood in. Not because you did more, but because you became different. That's the secret. That's the shift. That's the freedom. Success was never supposed to look like burnout. It was never meant to feel like chasing something outside of you while ignoring the voice within. But that's what the old paradigm taught us. Run faster, do more, achieve endlessly. And if you're not constantly climbing, you must be falling behind. That was the lie. That was the loop. And it's the loop you're now ready to break. When you quantum shift, the entire idea of success collapses into something far more meaningful. Not because you're giving up ambition, but because you're redefining what it means to arrive. You begin to understand that success isn't about accumulation. It's about alignment. It's about who you're becoming while no one's watching. It's not about how much you can prove, but how deeply you can live in truth. And when you live in truth, success stops being a destination. It becomes a frequency, something you carry in your energy, not something you chase in your calendar. Suddenly, the things you used to obsess over, followers, income goals, external validation, lose their grip. Not because they no longer matter, but because they no longer define you. You start to see that your purpose was never about being perfect. It was about being real, living fully in a world that rewards masks, holding your ground when your inner world doesn't match the outer noise, choosing presence over performance. And that's where your power begins to expand. Because in a world of noise, authenticity becomes magnetic, integrity becomes currency, and stillness becomes a revolution. You become unshakable not because everything goes right, but because your identity is no longer built on sand. Your worth doesn't wobble when the algorithm changes. Your peace doesn't disappear when plans fall through. You're no longer swayed by metrics, comments, or someone else's definition of enough. You've taken back the pen. You're writing your own meaning. And here's what most people never tell you. Real success feels spacious. It feels like exhaling. It feels like taking up space without apology. It's not a race to the top. It's a return to self. The more aligned you are, the less you need to force anything. You stop begging the world to see you because you've already seen yourself. And once that happens, success isn't something you pursue. It's something you embody. You might still build, still strive, still dream, but it's not from lack anymore. It's not from proving, or pleasing, or escaping. It's from overflow, from clarity, from wholeness. Your success becomes a byproduct of your authenticity, not a replacement for it. And that is the essence of quantum living. Doing less, but becoming more. You stop asking, what should I do with my life? And start asking, what is trying to come through me if I just stopped resisting? That's purpose. Not a role or a title, but a frequency that aligns your internal compass with your external choices. That's when the loop finally breaks. When your life isn't built around old stories, but new truth. And if you're still holding on to the belief that you need to sacrifice your peace to reach your goals, this is your invitation to drop that weight. Your success doesn't require your suffering. Your purpose doesn't demand your burnout. It asks only for your coherence, your willingness to show up as your truest self, again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. This isn't the fluffy kind of personal development. It's the kind that makes you dismantle your illusions and step into who you were before the programming. The kind of success we talk about there isn't found on a stage, it's felt in your bones. It's quieter, deeper, and so much more real. And as you continue walking this path, remember, real purpose doesn't ask for applause. It asks for presence. And when you choose that, not once, but as a lifestyle, the universe doesn't just meet you, it reflects you. Not because you begged it to, but because you finally became someone it could recognize. There comes a point in your evolution when you realize this was never just about you. Your awakening doesn't end when your reality changes. That's only where it begins. Because the moment you stop living on autopilot and start embodying your truth, you give silent permission for others to do the same. You become living proof that the loop can be broken, that you don't have to keep waking up to the same struggles, the same emotions, the same identity playing on repeat. That reality is not a rigid wall, but a living mirror. And the moment you shift, everything else responds. And that's the legacy of your shift. Not just what you create, but what you transmit. Not what you teach with your words, but what your energy whispers into every space you enter. People can feel when someone has done the work. There's a grounded clarity to them, a presence that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. That's what quantum shifting does. It removes the static. It clears the noise. It allows the real you to take the wheel, and that version of you is a force. But let's be honest, the world isn't built to support that version of you. It wants the predictable one, the quiet one, the one who doubts, hesitates, and shrinks to fit in. That's why this work is revolutionary. Because every day you choose authenticity over performance, integrity over approval, expansion over familiarity, you are defying the system. You are disrupting the loop that's been passed down for generations. And yet, this isn't about becoming a rebel for the sake of it. This is about alignment. Deep, soulful alignment with the truth of who you are. No more pretending. No more compromising to fit someone else's mold. The quantum field doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be coherent, to choose the life that feels true, again and again, even when your old programming screams to play it safe. Because that scream won't go away overnight. The old self will try to pull you back. The doubts will flare. The temptations to shrink, to settle, to forget will show up in quiet ways. But the difference now is, you can see the game for what it is. You can feel when something isn't aligned. And more importantly, you trust yourself enough to walk away from it. You're no longer a slave to external markers. You're no longer chasing validation in metrics, money, or approval. You've turned inward. You've anchored into your power. And because of that, your very existence becomes a portal for others. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to argue with the unready. You just need to embody what you know and let that energy do the talking. You'll begin to see shifts that used to take months happen in days. Relationships that reflect your old self will fall away, and new connections, ones that mirror your expansion, will show up like clockwork. Opportunities that once felt out of reach will begin to appear not because you hustled for them, but because you finally became a match for them. That's the law. That's the shift. And when you look back, you'll realize it wasn't one big moment that changed your life. It was 1,000 micro decisions, quiet choices made in silence. Saying no when your body said no, even if your mind was scared. Saying yes when your intuition whispered, "This is it." Choosing again and again to return to who you really are, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That's the real work. That's the new reality. And it's already here. You're standing in it. So protect your frequency, honor your inner world, and surround yourself with people who see you, not for who you've been, but for who you're becoming. The journey isn't linear, and it's not supposed to be, but it is yours to walk, fully, freely, authentically. And if you've made it this far, it means something inside you already knew the truth before you even pressed play. This message just confirmed it. That's why we created the Insights Academy newsletter, for those who are ready to walk this path with depth and honesty. We go beyond the surface and into the frequency-level truths that can't always be shared here. And when you sign up, you'll also receive a free copy of The Kybalion, an ancient Hermetic text that holds the very keys to reality most people were never taught. You're not here to decorate your loop. You're here to exit it. You're not here to manifest a shinier version of the cage. You're here to remember you were never meant to live in one. And when you step into that truth, the shift doesn't just happen around you. It happens through you. You become the new timeline. You become the proof. You become the portal. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting. I understood it.